this race because I'm fighting for two individuals. I'm not just fighting for people wrongfully convicted. I'm fighting for people rightfully convicted. Like my man, he just said, hey, I had the bright idea to rob a grocery store. He admitted that. For 40 years, that's when we give people kill people. You know what I'm saying? Right. And to give that type of time out destroys not just his life, but the lives around him. And we're paying an extraordinary amount of money. They're trying, because you said you were 19, right?
I was 19. Now I wasn't sentenced to 40. I ended up serving 10.
Right, but they tried to.
Oh yeah. That was the initial plea.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I know you ain't. But what I'm saying is that people get those type of ridiculous sentencing. If I could say I helped anybody while I was in prison, the only thing I could think of, all those guys were my professors. I talked the guy out of suicide one time, and guess what? I talked him out. He got 30 years. And every appeal that he did, he didn't say he didn't do it. He didn't say it was right. He was just saying that the sentencing was unjust. And I agree. He received a video he shouldn't have received. And he admits to that. The person who made the video got 5 years. He got 30 years. And so when his last appeal didn't go through, he told me, he said, I can't live here for 30 years like this or whatever. And he told me he was going to off himself. And I helped anybody. I'd like to think I helped him. But I got to give the credit to my professors. They're the author of my book, Vigilante, which is on Amazon. It's an audio, it's an ebook, it's a book. And they're the ones that asked me to run for Congress. Wow. They're the ones that told me, look, they made you a convicted felon so you couldn't run for office. That was the whole objective. But you can run for Congress, and you should run for Congress because you can help us better in Congress, and you could, in the county, you can just help one jail and one group of people. In Congress, you can have an effect for all of us across the nation, even out there in Arkansas where I was. And that's how I became a candidate for the United States Congress.
Oh, wow. That's dope. That's dope, man. I like that. Me, myself, I mean, most of my audience know me, man. But, hey, I had this bright idea to, commit an armed robbery with somebody else. We got away. I got caught. I went to prison for 16 years, you know what I'm saying? So I had a lot of ups and downs. When I left the street, my son was 2. When I got out, he was 18. It just, going to prison really messed up a lot of other people's life, not just my own, but a lot of times we don't understand that it messes with family. It messes family up. You know what I'm saying? So I don't blame anybody but myself for what I did. See, I'm not like, you, whereas I was wrongfully convicted. I did what I did, but my thing is, I think I was over sentenced to live, a little bit. The maximum on my charge was 20 years. I didn't have any prior convictions, and the judge gave me 16 because I decided to take it to trial. I mean, go figure. You know what I'm saying? So I served my time, and once I got out of Clay County Transitional Center, shout out to Pam Wiggins. I'm still looking for her, because Pam Wiggins said something. She was the warden at the Clayton County Transitional Center, and she said she was sending people back to prison left and right, and she got in the class because she was pissed that day. You know what I'm saying? And the one thing she said is, I can't want it for you worse than you want it for yourself. And when I tell you that stuck with me for life, I'm going to catch up with her just to thank her for that statement, because if it didn't hit anybody else, it hit me. So, but yeah, that's my story. Once I got out, I got a nearly full pardon in 2020. So we still working on some other stuff.
When you say nearly full pardon, why you say nearly?
Because it says full pardon, but they didn't return my gun rights. Now that could be changed in the next 60 days because I'm at 4 months now. So That could change in the next 60 days. I'm looking forward to change in the next 60 days because I think this time they're going to give them back to me.
Okay.
Yeah. But you know they're going to keep seeing me until they give them to me.
Yeah, it's just some paperwork.
Yeah, that's it.
So let's discuss that for a second.
Okay.
You know, it was interesting, man. I had a lot of interest in debates. Like I said, those guys, now don't get me wrong, everybody there was intellectual. There was folks selling drugs, doing what people do, stabbing folks or whatever like that. But that wasn't everybody. And we had some interesting discussions. And one was about gun rights. And what they were saying is that, okay, if you committed a violent crime with a gun, maybe we could see that. Okay. But let's say you're there for tax evasion, you're there for whatever. Mm-hmm. Why is it that I could never go hunting again, or I could never have something to protect my family again? Mm-hmm. And you know, that's a legitimate point because, and even in your guys' case, it's a legitimate point because, okay, again, look at the age you were when this happened. Mm-hmm. You know, you're not the same person you are when you're 19 and when you're 35 or whatever like that. Right. And so basically what we're doing is giving people a life sentence. You know, and I've said this 100 times before, you know, we invite everybody to church and tell them the Lord's going to forgive you all your sins. But we don't forgive, and the system doesn't forgive. No. So they're saying you get a felony when you're 19, and then you're going to have a life sentence of not having certain rights the rest of your life. If you paid your debt to society, if you did everything that you're supposed to do, why can't you run for office? Why can't you do certain things again? There are countries where when you run for political office, you have to go to the prison. The prison's like a precinct. You got to debate because you want those particular votes. Right. But in our country right now, the free and the brave, the conviction is being used to disqualify people from certain things. And and the problem with laws like that is when you do that, then you get prosecutors and judges like the one I had, where it's not about justice, it's about conviction, because they're trying to disqualify you from doing something. So, okay, well, if this guy runs, he's going to win, but the only way for us to stop him from running is to put a conviction on him. And then now we're seeing the criminal justice system being used that way in lawfare, not just with politicians, not just with celebrities, but from people with all walks of life. And again, it's about convictions as opposed to justice. Mm-hmm. And that's why, can we change these judges and prosecutors? That's hard to do. But we can do things with the system that can put checks and balances on them that's helping them just to mass produce convictions on people so they can give these people a felon status so they can disqualify them from stuff that they want to do.
I think that the agenda at hand, when I look at certain things, I often go down the rabbit hole and I try to look at the full effect of things. So I am a convicted felon. I do have a full pardon. I do have a license to carry. I got a house full of pistols. They're all legal. But what I do, if I'm being blatantly honest, the United States has the highest prison population in the world. It's not by chance. It's by design. Georgia has one of the highest percentages of recidivism, which is the rate at which individuals return back to prison. So they're only expecting you to stay out about 18 months. I interact with people that I've been incarcerated with, but to an extent. I'm ready for a firearm. And even when I first received my rights, I still had to condition myself. When I say that, I ride motorcycles. So as soon as I got that card and I went to the gun shop and I slapped it on the table like it was the ace of spades, and I just started buying guns, I wore my gun on my hip. Because I was like, I'm happy I couldn't wait. I envisioned myself doing this. But then I thought about all the attention that I was bringing to myself. And I said, is this smart? Because if a robber or somebody's going to come in and they're going to do something, I'm going to be in their way. They're going to get me out the way first. So now if I have it on me, I've got it in a holster inside my pants where you can't see it. And sometimes, you know what? At 48, if I got to take my gun somewhere, I don't even want to go. I don't want to go.
That.
I don't want to go. But also I understand that some of the people that had some of the same crimes and some to a lesser degree, I would not trust some of these people with firearms. And I'm just being honest with you, because of the mentality, because the system has failed them to a certain degree. There's been no shifting of the paradigm. There's been no awakening. It's just a matter of time for they go back to chain gang. It's just that close away. Because they're not utilizing emotional intelligence. We at a point where it's so many shootings everywhere with older and younger people. A lot of us, we don't have the intellect. I went and got trained to clean my firearm, and I learned about safety. And I recommend that for everybody, man. And then you got to understand that when you got a firearm, you're not just thinking for yourself. You got to think for everybody that's in your vicinity. Because you're going to run into some idiots. I live right around the corner from County Road. Let me tell you something. And you got to just be careful. You got to be careful, but you got to think for other people. Okay, that's a full blown idiot. Let me just go the other way, or let me just smile, or let me make sure they see my gray hair so I can get on up out of here. But I'm not saying I agree with the standards in the law, but I understand as a whole, an inmate in the state of Georgia, uh, it costs $30,000 to $40,000 a year to house this individual. The state of Georgia has about 50,000 inmates. That's about $1.5 billion. That's a business, baby. Ever since slavery ended in 1865, the prison population has gone up. And if they keep dropping this drill music, it ain't gonna do nothing but get stronger and stronger. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Let me go ahead. You have something?
Nah, what you got?
Let me just say this. You got a lot of good points here. And the crazy part is, I just spoke about this the other day on my social media. Convicted felons can't get certain jobs, like they can't get in law enforcement. Right. So think about this. You can't become a correctional officer if you're a convicted felon.
Right.
But when you look at all of the jails, you look at the jail I used to command, the prison that I was at, the place was full with drugs, full with drug dealers. How it gets there? The non-convicted felons are bringing the drugs in to sell it. So, we tell these folks, hey, okay, you can't be a prison guard because you're a convicted felon, you was once in prison. But the people we tell can be prison guards are committing felonies. You tell a man, okay, he can't run for office because he's a convicted felon, but the people committed felonies and make me a convicted felon because they lied to a grand jury. You got prosecutors lying to a grand jury, you got the judge rigging the case. So these people aren't convicted felons, but yet they're committing perjury. You and I go and lie to a grand jury, it's going to happen. So I don't, it's a delicate balance because there are a lot of people who they're not convicted felons. They haven't had to go through a psych exam, and they crazy as hell, but they can walk in and buy a gun anytime they want. Facts. Because they don't have this conviction.
Facts.
And they didn't, you know what I'm saying? So, and then you brought up another interesting point that was strong and on point, man. And I had this conversation with a gentleman that he and I was in there at the same time. That he was real upset about his gun rights because he was a gun enthusiast. He was like, I don't know how they expect me to be out there and I can't protect myself. But I told him something. I said, listen, man, it seems, don't get me wrong, man. I love guns. I was trained by a gunfighter. You can go on the internet and see the skills. I was a sniper. But the one thing I want him to be clear on, I said, look, you can't even be a cop and shoot somebody now without someone trying to charge you with murder, even if you're right. So imagine you get in a shootout and you win in a self-defense. These prosecutors won't charge you with murder, and now you still got to figure out how not to spend the rest of life in prison when you're saying, hey, this is self-defense. And these folks are trying to get convictions. They're not really interested in what happened. And if they can get a murder conviction on you, they can and they will. I once had an accidental shoot, and they were hoping the person was going to die. When the person didn't die, they were trying to upgrade it to aggravated assault, even though they said, hey, it was a training accident. So you got to think about that, because it's not just as simple that you can be, and I used to live off of Candler Road too, my man, when I first came here.
Yeah.
But it's not that simple. You go to Candler Road to a store, you get in a shootout, and hey, I defended myself, and I'm good. Hey, you're good. That was not what if you want to call it good. It was justifiable. You go home. Odds are you kill somebody, you could be dead to the right. They're gonna drop a murder charge on you,
right,
just for GP.
Right.
So I think. Exactly. So I think that you said something profound, man. I heard it said a different way. Is it the best way not to get shot in the club is don't be in the club?
That's it.
Shot in the club.
That's it.
Right.
That's it.
And then once I decided to go a certain way in my career, I could once I became sheriff, I could never go in the club again.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't. Because I'm the guy that comes to the club after people get shot. So if I'm in there while they getting shot, it's
hard. It's hard to do it. I do the formula. Anytime you add a bunch of grown black men with new tennis shoes, with alcohol, and half naked women, it's gonna be paperwork involved. And I'm not even being racist, but it's gonna be some paperwork involved. Possibly some yellow tape. It's just a formula.
You're right about that.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah.
So one day we'll get on here and we'll talk about the past.
Right.
But I think those two profound points are something for people to think about. And I'm no stranger to the hood, obviously. A lot of people don't know my history. Actually, my family, we lived on a housing project when I was real young. My mother worked to get us off of there. And probably just in time because we missed the crack epidemic right at that particular time. And then, of course, most of my life was spent as a street cop. Of course, that's our roots. We're always going to love the hood, the people in the hood, the music, the food. But, there has to come a time where you got to know, okay, well, if I'm there on business, I'm there on business. But you got to pick and choose where you go because like you said, and I thought it was brilliant, if it's somewhere where I'm going to need my gun, I probably don't need to go. Because the places I went where I needed my gun, I went in capacity as a sheriff.
Right.
And that's the reason I had a gun. I was a sheriff. But now that I'm not the sheriff, there's no real reason to go there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
I got a question. Because right now, all of the prisons are locked down because they've got this Muslim on Bloods riots just taking off everywhere. Okay, so I was looking at an interview that you did with a ex-state trooper, and you said that there's an individual who was at your facility, and because you ran a tight camp, he was able to get off of drugs. And he thanked you. And you was like, for what? And he was like, man, I wasn't able to get no drugs there. So right now, I'm talking to people who are coming home, guys who are going in for, theft, whatever the crime is, but they don't have drug addictions. But now when they're coming home, they've got drug addictions. And then I'm looking at the drones going into the Georgia Department of Corrections. And then I'm looking at an increase of stabbings. In the month of April, you had about 37 people who were stabbed and killed in the Georgia Department of Corrections. These are alarming numbers. This is ridiculous. It is. Let me, just hypothetically, if you understand how a facility works, and I've never been in Clayton County Jail, and I don't want to go. But how would you possibly handle the influx of drugs and the multiple deaths inside the Georgia Department of Corrections?
Easy. Now, of course, it'd be a much bigger job because they have a lot of facilities. But let me tell you what I did. First of all, before I became sheriff, I never ran a jail or worked a jail a day in my life. So I didn't have any correctional experience. My time was always spent as a patrol officer, and the majority was spent as a detective. So I specialized in violent crime. So anyway, when I took over the jail was pretty wild and I had a lot of escapes. It was down in Lovejoy. Matter of fact, I locked up 5 guys for armed robbery and all 5 escaped from that jail. They somehow got up through the roof and jumped from the front of the building and got on. You remember that? Yeah. That was my case. And it took a while to get them on those robberies. And then I don't know how long it took them to get them back. And then also, when they moved to the new jail, 2 murderers escaped from that jail. And that was related to a case of mine. Actually, it was, I worked a home invasion robbery at a house, and I locked his brother up. He didn't want his brother to go to prison, so he went to the house and started executing everybody in there so they would testify against his brother. Here's the problem: it was a duplex, and he was at the wrong one.
Oh,
so
man.
the door opens, he shoots the man. When he opens the door, he chases this woman, and he shoots two people, and then when he gets to her, there's a baby in her hand, and he points a gun, and by that time, he's got so many bullets, he didn't realize he was out of it. That's what he got out of jail. I'm getting off track. Let's get to this. Man, I'm going to tell you right now how I stopped the drugs from getting in there. It's not rocket science. I'm not a genius. An angel didn't come down and visit me. It's just as simple. Usually at every jail, there's 4 or 5 ways to get in. Nurses and doctors might come through this way, warehouse people this way or that. I was like, the hell with that. Everybody gets in this jail this way.
Through this door.
Nobody else comes through any other door. Everybody, including me, is searched. There's a camera there filming, and I can look at it. I can wake up out my sleep at night and get bored and say, let me see if these folks are searching. But it's also recorded. Every now and then a drug dog is there just for GP.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody has to be searched. If you got to take a cigarette break and you only smoke for 2 minutes, when you come back, you get searched again. So that way, we know, okay, it can only got through this way because nobody's going to be coming in any other way.
Right.
And then you kind of got to do it like, I bought this old lake house and I refurbished it. And I learned something from the pest control people. It was a 30-year-old house. So, of course, you buy a lake, and with lakes, you're going to have snakes, and wherever you have snakes, you're going to have rodents or whatever like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they did something interesting. Before I moved in the house, hey, I want to make sure. They sealed the house to make sure nothing could get in it. Make sure, okay, a snake can't squeeze in, a rodent can't squeeze in. But then after they sealed the house, for 4 weeks, they put traps in there. Because once you seal it, that don't mean there wasn't a snake or a rodent already in there.
Right.
Okay, and when they sealed it, they killed some, they found some mice in the basement, the garage, and there was a roof rat. And once I moved in, there was never one in there because they sealed it, and then they did a good search.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's all I did with the jail. I sealed it, and then we shook the jail. And we didn't just shake it one time. I told them I want my jail shaking every day. I want to drive down Terra Boulevard and feel like there's an earthquake. And I they shaking down the jail again, you know what I'm saying? And there's no drugs, no cell phone. It wasn't rocket science. And here's the other thing. Remember this now. Remember, a lot of what you see, this political fight and this fight that put me in prison or whatever, I made a lot of enemies because I fired a lot of people. People thought I was hard on criminals. I was even harder on the correctional officers. I had to, this okay, he ruled with fear and intimidation. I damn sure did. I had no choice because it was the guards that I had to really watch because drugs don't float into the jail.
Right.
So I had to constantly discipline or fire them in order to keep the place safe. So, of course, everybody go, oh, my God, he fired everybody, this and that, because I had political enemies that they were using law for anyone I fired, hey, go sue. Let's fill them up with lawsuits. But everyone I fired needed to be fired. Everyone I put in jail should have been in jail. And everyone that I ever said we need to restrain needed to be restrained. That's the truth of it. They can say what they want. I think like Tom Chrisley say, whether you believe me or not, I'm innocent. But I had to be more, my iron fist had to be more on the guards than the inmates. The inmates can only do what you allow them to. It's like running a daycare center. Okay, we know kids are bad, but they can only do so much if you allow them to do it. Mm-hmm. Right. Again, if you're not bringing drugs in there, they can't get high and overdose. 5 people died of overdose in that 10 months I was in federal prison. I know, I can only imagine what y'all see. And I saw everything. From K2 to methamphetamine to everything was there. And what's so crazy is we gonna lock somebody up and give him 30 years. There's a lot of guys here serving 30 years and 20 years for drugs, which I've always thought was ridiculous. I'm gonna quiz y'all on something. So I tell you all this stuff about Victor Hill and how hard I am on crime. Tell me about how many drug dealers you heard I locked up. Can you remember? And I'm not saying I haven't locked up drug dealers, but tell me how many.
I can't recall. I'm not sure.
I really didn't lock up a lot of them. Let me tell you why. I wasn't so much concerned with locking them up as I was stopping them from selling drugs or making them leave Clayton County. If let's say you the kingpin, if I lock you up, all you're gonna do is replace another kingpin. Matter of fact, they used to help. Hey, here, get him out here so I can be the kingpin.
Right.
Right. Okay. So we still got drugs, but I stop your ability to sell drugs. So, okay, if you run a trap house, I put a car in front of the trap house. You can't sell drugs no more. So you either stop or you leave. You go to another county or whatever. Grandmama is happy, the church mother's happy, the kids can play, they're not getting shot. Okay, well, I put a road check or whatever. I stop the ability of them to sell drugs, just like I stop the ability of people to bring drugs into the facility. Because if locking up people for 30 and 40 years actually solved the problem, then how we got all the drugs we still got on the street and how we going to put them in a facility full of drugs? So you're missing the point. The point is just like you got to stop the 2-year-old from getting to the Clorox and swallowing it. You stop their ability from being able to sell the drugs. That's how I ran the drug dealers out of Clayton County.
Yeah.
Now, they weren't happy, but guess what? They didn't go to jail. And the people on the street was happy because they didn't have to worry when someone got in an argument about who's gonna sell drugs and they shoot and they miss and they end up shooting somebody's child or whatever like that. So if you control the territory, you can control the crime. I love chess, but my favorite game is Go. Go is an ancient Chinese game, only game that approximates war like chess does. And all the Go masters, the real ones, sometimes they don't capture a single piece. All they do is control the territory. They win the game. Chess, we're trying to capture the king. And that's how we've been doing with drug deals all this time. Let's capture the kingpin. If you control the territory, you ain't even worried about it.
It's a non-issue.
Right. Now, let me say this. I got tore up in that prison on chess. I met some real chess masters there, and I had to say, hey, your kung fu is better than mine. But I did have some go strategy they didn't know about. So that there you go.
Okay. I actually have a program at DeKalb Juvenile where I work with at-risk youth, and I teach them the game of chess. Now I mesh it with emotional intelligence, but my whole thing is if you can come in and learn how to move these 16 pieces, then you can go into a business and learn the ins and outs. You can go to a classroom and learn what it is that you need to know, but it's a continuous struggle. So I'm gonna be honest with you today. I tried to find a reason to hate you, Victor Hill. I tried in my mind. I did, cause this is what I saw when I saw Fox 5. I saw you saying some things that were a tad bit arrogant. And then when I went to Channel 11, I seen some more. I said, man, this dude off the chain. But then when I sat down and I started listening to interviews and where you were able to explain certain things, it just kind of made sense. Like I drove from here to Warner Robins. I was just like, I don't know. Because then I thought about how do you take control of a place that is out of whack? And so with me, because I have been to prison, chain gang rules are in effect. And when I say chain gang rules are in effect, this is how you have to move in chain gang. You have to make an example. And if you're not willing to make an example, you can prepare to be a victim. You can prepare to have your name changed and possibly your throat rearranged, if that makes sense. So when I started paying attention, I was like, oh, then I went to another interview and you were saying this and this. And I need to get that book. I need to get that book.
I'm gonna get it to
I need to get that book. Is it on Amazon?
It's on Amazon and it's also audio. And I actually recorded it.
It's an audio book.
Yeah, right.
I think that anytime you're gonna come in and you're gonna restructure something and you're gonna demand that that people operate from a position of integrity, hey man, you got to draw the line. If you're not willing to draw the line, you ain't gonna get nothing done. And it's just that simple. Just that simple.
I appreciate that. And again, the media, they can paint a picture.
Oh man, they chop and screw.
And exactly. And they lie by omission as well as commission. Kind of like the trial. it's not always what people say. There can be a direct lie. Like in my case, everybody mysteriously claimed they urinated on themselves. And a lot of people don't know. Here's what they omitted. A lot of people don't know that all these 6 people that I ordered to be restrained, a lot of them were contacted a year after they already left jail. They went through 630 reports and found the 7 times they thought it was 7 times. One, they found out in trial I didn't order it, but they never indicted the guy who did.
Mm-hmm.
They thought I ordered it, but didn't. And that goes to show that it was targeted. But I want to give you an example. Okay, you can lie by commission. So you guys, 6 guys that never made a complaint that got contacted a year later. Oh yeah, I was in the chair. Yeah. Oh, you know what? Yeah, I did feel pain. Oh yeah, I did urinate on myself. No decontamination reports. No pictures showing any urine anywhere or whatever. So that's lying by commission. But the omission part is where they failed to tell the jury and didn't allow us to tell the jury that these guys had already been out of jail, never made a complaint, never said anything. And then what they really admitted is that it started over a political campaign. The guy that they came to the office over was a guy working on a campaign to unseat me as sheriff. But they would not use that particular case because they know it would prove that it was political. They want to make it seem as if though, hey, this guy's tortured people. Never laid a hand on them. They were checked every 15 minutes by a nurse. And by officers and checked before they got in the chair and out of the chair by a nurse. Everyone claiming that their wrists hurt. The nurse would check to make sure it wasn't too tight. That was protocol.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we got to attack the system, because here's the thing. Most people would probably never even get in the system if it wasn't for a grand jury. And most people don't know America's the only place left with a grand jury.
Thanks.
And it's okay, it's archaic, and it's like a star chamber, because the prosecutor can go in there and tell the grand jury whatever he wants, and there's no checks and balances just to get the indictment. And then once you're indicted, you're in the system. But then let's just say you did make a mistake. Like you guys have said, okay, yeah, I made a mistake. Well, then you get overcharged. Then you get oversentenced. Then you got to deal with the stigma of what you can do and what you can't do. And so, the first thing we got to fix is how we even get a lot of these convictions. Okay, but if it's a legitimate conviction, okay, fine. But even if it's a legitimate conviction, do we punish you the rest of your life? Or do you just take the punishment for a lot of the time? And is the punishment proper? Because how does a guy with a nonviolent drug conviction get 30 years? 30 years is what you give people for killing people.
Right.
Right.
This is
the type of stuff that I want to fight in Congress.
Gotcha. So I have 2 things. One of them is when you were talking, not just now, but in previous interviews, in my mind, I was like, some of this stuff has to be a political move, and they move a different way. And I came to a conclusion because I started thinking about back in the days when in DeKalb County, I think we had a sheriff that had another sheriff killed. And I started I said, man,
you can read about that in my book.
I said, man, politicians and lawmakers, these the real gangsters. They ain't playing around, man.
They gangsters with a badge.
Hey, man.
Absolutely. I hate to say it, but I do hate to say it because people accuse me of being a gangster. But let me say this. There's an old saying that politics is war without bloodshed, and war is politics with bloodshed. Well, that's no longer the case. If you're in a particular position and they feel that they can't unseat you, which is how they felt in Clayton County, the DA, and these people in the book, Tasha Mosley, Jeff Turner, all the people behind it, the judge, just friends with the DA. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. There's only 2 ways. If the people are for you, there's only 2 ways to stop you from winning. And that's to either kill you or indict you. That's the only way they can stop it. And that's why you see these assassinations and these political assassinations. And the thing is this. And a lot of people don't like when I say this, and that's fine. But this is the truth. Okay, it's kind of like even if you look at the presidential race, if you don't like a person, you don't vote for them. But to indict a person or kill a person, that's supposed to be third world. You see what I'm saying? So you got all these folks. I've heard people, yeah, I want to see them go to jail. I want to see such and such and such and such. It's amazing, man. We grew up in this country, and they tell us that you can be the president if you want to, but they didn't tell us that folks will indict you and try to put you in prison or disqualify you by indictment or whatever. And that's what you're seeing here. And that's another reason why I picked the 5th District. The 5th District is comprised of DeKalb County, and Fulton County. And we've seen lawfare in those 3 counties. DeKalb, you saw the sheriff killed. Then you saw the CEO indicted and sent to prison by that DA's office. Mm-hmm. Okay, Fulton County, I don't even need to talk about it. Clayton County, we got the situation where you see what the DA's office tried with me. This ain't the first time they tried. If you recall, back in 2012, I was indicted on a RICO. And a lot of people don't understand, the media would never put out, okay, what exactly did they say he did? Well, I was accused of stealing my police car 5 times. They say every time I drove the car out of town, it was theft. Every time I put gas in it. So this is a criminal enterprise. So they made a case that was less than $2,000 RICO. RICO was designed for the mob. It was designed for whatever. But you see these crazy prosecutors like we got even using RICO to lock up school teachers. And that's why the guys, they had this idea for me to run for Congress because it's not, you can't wait every 4 years to replace these crazy DAs. But if we abolish or reform the grand jury system, a lot of this stuff would stop. If you were allowed to be in there when they present a case and have your attorney and rebut the evidence they have that they probably don't have because a lot of them lied, like in my case, half of these indictments you wouldn't see, half the people in prison you wouldn't see. And think about this. You're talking about the $1 billion for Georgia. I think the federal prison is $6 billion, probably more than that. And people don't understand how astronomical that is. If you lay $1 billion in the end, it'll circle the earth 4 times. If you sleep 1 billion seconds, you sleep 32 years.
Wow.
So we haven't even lived 2 billion seconds yet.
Right.
So we got to. And then here, and here's one other thing I want to add to it. When I got elected to the House of Representatives back in 2002, the state turned red for the first time. So we had a Republican Senate, a Republican governor. So what did I do? Did I go down there and start calling them racist and all kind of stuff like that? Didn't do that. What I did is, okay, what can we work to get done together? There's some things we couldn't work on to get that we accomplished together. And the first thing, couldn't work with them on that particular issue. But I was like, hey, I do want to work with you. Told the governor, I do want to work with you. I just can't work with you on that. And we were able to get some things done. There are actually, most people don't know this, but there are actually 4 bills in Georgia, 4 laws that I offered and my name is on that law. The one of
somebody in prison